Alright, so this is going to be a video showing how to solve the Mastermorphix. So what I would do first, if you're not used to this puzzle, is you have to realize that this is the same thing as a 3x3. The only difference is the shapes are different and the centers have to be oriented in a certain position. So the way you could think about it, the pieces that are split in half like this, these are these centers. And then the pieces right here would be the edges. And then there's two types of corners. There's these little ones on either side, and then the big ones on the other side. So like this would be like the top layer, and then the middle layer, and then the bottom layer. So like that's what it looks like in regards to like a 3x3. Okay, so I have it scrambled, and again, you have to always remember that this is like a 3x3, because right now it just looks like a jumbled mess, but in reality, here's the center, these four edges, and then these four pieces or corners. So the first step in solving the cube is to orient the centers. So you can see like these two are green. I would find the other green one, and so I have to turn the faces so that all the greens are on the same face. So then I could go over to the blue. So since these are all oriented, I know this side has to be blue. So the blue, I would face it this way, and then this blue, turn it once, and make it face the other ones. So then finally I do the red. So these two are already good. So it's just that last one. Okay, so when I start solving the cube, I start on the red and blue center. So the first step is to get the cross, which in this case is like this red piece. This is what you were looking for. So like here's a blue piece, and you have to make sure when you insert it that it is oriented right, because it could be like this, but it's not flipped right. And you can play around experimenting, especially if you do a lot of moves, you gotta make sure the centers are reoriented. So you solve a couple pieces at a time. So like this blue one, I know I can move it down, so I can like attach it to the center, and then move it down. So I have three. I'll do this red one. So I can match it up with this red center, move it in, and solve it. So, but if you can get across on the 3x3, you should be able to figure out how to get this one. To keep this simple, especially if you're not really a speed cuber, but you know how to solve a 3x3, I will use the beginner method for this solve. So the next step after the cross is getting the corners. So like this red corner would go right here, this small one. So you can just insert it and solve it. And these little ones, it doesn't matter which way it's oriented. So it could be like this or like this. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing with this blue one over here. So I can insert it like that. And then, so those are the little corners. The big corners, you have to look at the different faces. So this one, the corner has blue, red, and yellow. So look around, and here it is. So I turn the top layer, and then I have to figure out how to insert it, because if I insert it like this, it'll be flipped wrong. Which is just like on a 3x3, you just insert it so the colors are oriented the right way. So that's 3 corners solved. I look for the last one, and it's red, blue, and green. So I look around the cube, and here it is. So I move it over, and I look on how it's oriented, and I insert it. So that's it for the first layer. Now we will finish the middle layer. So how I do this is So I know the green edge piece needs to go here, but I need to make sure it's oriented right. So a good trick to do is if I have a green edge over here, I would just move it down, and if it's flush with the center, I know that's the way I need to insert it. But if it was like this and it's not flush, that's the wrong way. So I'd move it over here, and also on a 3x3 it would look like this. So on a 3x3, this F12 case that we have with the green edge looks like this. So it's going to the left. So it's the same algorithm. So it goes like this. And you insert it. So that solves that spot. And I'll go and find the yellow edge. So the yellow edge, so I put it here and I check and see if it's flush, and it is. So I know it needs to go to the right. So I insert it using the F12 algorithm. Solves it. So now that red one is on the top, so we can check if it's, nope, it's not flush. So it's flush, so it needs to go to the right. Insert it. So the last one is the blue. So there's only one blue edge. So we see if it's flush. Here it is. And then so I insert it. And that'll solve the middle layer. So now you have the first two layers solved. Okay, now we have the first two layers solved. Now we get to the hardest part of the solve, which is the last layer. So I'm going to break it down and do it in the beginner's method, which is you orient and solve the edges. So you could get any number of cases, and it might be tricky at first, and I might not explain it too well, but what you want to try and find first is if the edges are oriented correctly. So what to look for is these two green edges. If they are flipped like the same way, you know that one of them is wrong, which also means one of these ones are wrong. So this, you have two like that are solved right here, just in this case. So this is similar to the OLL case. So this is the OLL case it looks like. It looks like the line case, which you do the same algorithm, so F prime, to solve, or to move these two edges around. So F prime. And remember, you got to keep the red and blue center on the bottom the whole time. So that moved them around, but now we have these two solved and these two are flipped. So now we do the other OLL case, the L case, if you can see it. So that's just the other algorithm. And then I'll have flipped those edges. So now they might look jumbled up, but at least you know that they're oriented the correct way. So then from here, you could either have all of them solved, none of them solved, or one edge solved. Or you could have two of them solved. So what you want to look for is if one of them are solved. So you want to have, obviously, the yellow pointed to the yellow. And we're going to do the soon algorithm, which is this case on a 3x3. So the algorithm goes like this. And in my case, it solved it, but you might have to do it twice. The cube could be like this, it's where it still has one solved. And then you do the soon, still not solved, you just do it again. And as long as the edges are oriented correctly, it should solve them. I'll show you one of the tricky cases. So it might be like this. So this is good. You have the edges oriented correctly, but they're not in the right places. So it doesn't matter where you start. You just do the soon algorithm. and it should give you at least one solved edge. Okay, so solving the edges was definitely the hardest part of the solve. So now, once you get those edges solved, and if you have trouble, just leave a comment, and I'll try and help you. So the last step of the solve is to solve the corners. So the first step in the beginner's method to solve the corners is to put them in the correct place without maybe orienting them correctly. So like this one, it's in the correct spot with the orange or the yellow, green, and blue, but it's not flipped right. It doesn't matter about which way it's flipped right now. All that matters is it's in this spot. So you could either have all 4 of them in the correct place, none of them, or one of them. So here I have one of them in the correct place. So we're going to use a beginner's method algorithm to cycle these other 3 corners, and then you hold the solved, or the kind of solved corner on the right side. So the algorithm goes like this. L prime. And that shifts those corners around, and it might not have solved, like put them all in the correct place, and if it didn't, and if you had one solved already, just do it again and it'll solve it. It'll put them all in the right place. If you have none of the corners in the right position, like this, you'd still do that corner algorithm. And it'll solve one corner. Okay, so the last step is to orient these corners. So you'll notice that the big corners look like they're all mixed, but then the little ones look like they're solved. Remember, the little ones, it doesn't matter, like you can't tell which way it's oriented because all 3 are the same. So what you're gonna have to do is to orient this, you'd put it on the right with keeping the last layer on top, and you do this short algorithm. R prime, D prime, R, D. And you want to always hold your hand on here, because if you mess it up, you'll have to basically restart the solve. So you'll do it again. R prime, D prime, R, D. And this solved that corner, but you might have to do it 2 more times. So you do those 2 more moves, and then I'll have that corner solved. So then you rotate the other corner around so it's in that position. So you do those 4 moves again. R prime, D prime, R, D. Do it again. D. That will have oriented that corner. And you see the top layer looks solved, but you still have this all jumbled up. So keeping your hand where it was, what you can do is just flip this little one around because it doesn't matter. So you do the 4 flipping moves. And so that turned it around, and then I'll have solved the Mastermorphix. When I first learned how to solve this puzzle, and I got to the last step, I had one corner that wasn't solved. So what you just have to do is you do the 4 flipping moves, and you do it until that corner's solved. Like that. And then you just rotate in this small corner and finish off those moves. And then realign, and you should have it solved. Alright, if you made it this far, congratulations, you have solved your Mastermorphix. Tune in for more videos, subscribe and like. If you have any comments, just leave them down below. I'll try and help you out, and I'll see you in the next one.